Man, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Joe Diamond. I'm a Sagittarius. I like long walks on the beach. I've been a professional magician, mentalist, psychic entertainer my whole life. I go by my current moniker someone gave me is the Midwest Mystic. I do mind reading shows in historic venues like the Maxwell Mansion and the Woodstock Opera House. And this June, I'll be going on tour with Dr. Anthony Barnhart in a show called Psychics versus Science. He does the Cognitive Science of Magic program at Carthage College. He's done a lot of stuff with the science of magic, so he's very well versed to talk about what the difference is between, a magic effect or a psychological ploy versus, paranormal psychic phenomena. And so, yeah, we're going to be going head to head on stage, and I've got some stuff that I hopefully will leave him with some questions, but also hopefully there'll be some things that give me some new insight into the craft that we all do.
There's definitely an amazing science behind magic, especially when it comes to like psychological and why do certain things work.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a whole like a little mini documentary on the crosscut, and
Yeah,
you know what I'm referring to?
yes, and
That's amazing.
yeah, there've been a few people that have studied that. He and I have actually just done a test of psychological forces and AI, artificial intelligence. It actually ended up winning a grant. So yeah, so I get to say I consulted on mind control experiments with artificial intelligence. So that's kind of cool to like fun little humble brag there.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, it's funny. I recently I saw a clip of Oz Perlman, using those same techniques recently, and I was
Not
just
quite, not quite. This
it
is
really shows how powerful this is. I mean, I've done it a
uh,
thousand. Nobody notices, but
yeah. So are you talking about the crisscross force specifically, or okay? Yeah,
well,
yeah.
I
That's
think
yeah.
it's very underrated. I think a lot of
Oh,
people dismiss it as a beginner move, but it's very very powerful, very strong.
Benjamin Earl has like a whole master class on it, which is great. I use it in multiple routines. I actually have. If anything, I've used it probably too much. But yeah, but I always felt because yeah, growing up, I've the classic force, the here take any one. But there's an old clip of David Blaine nailing a classic force on Jimmy Kimmel, and he goes, "You know why you picked that card?" And Kimmel just smiles and goes, "Because you forced it on me." So I think people inherently understand that as a force, and I think we've got to be uh, more open. I love a good riffle force, a riffle slip force. I do love timing forces. I do love, certain, for lack of a better term, more psychological forces.
Yeah.
But for the most part, uh, yeah, I think, some of the best forces just are, hands off, on the table, and something like the crisscross allows for that, or crossing the cut. I think from what Max Holden called it. Um, and yeah, it is something that I think too many people misunderstand like why it works too. Like there's a great book. I think it's called The Psychology of Magic, where they go into some of the research into why it works and why it's so deceptive.
Right.
So I highly recommend checking that out as well, because once you understand that, I've actually been able to apply it in other ways to other routines.
What's the
Um,
name of the book you said? The Psychology of Magic.
yes, the Vanishing Ink puts it out. I believe, yeah, I believe it's just called The Psychology of Magic. Let me double
Yeah.
check here real quick. But yeah, it's really great, and they talk about disclaimers. They talk about forces. Yeah, it's really really good. Uh, or Psychology of Magic from Lab to Stage by Gustav Kuhn and Alice Paes, Paihes. Yeah, it's a great book. Really, really great. Highly recommended.
Check that out. I'm a big fan of books. That's another thing I see. Like, it seems almost like the newer generation is kind of going away from books. How do you feel about that? Because I feel,
I
that's where
think
the
the
best
opposite.
stuff is.
I personally have seen the opposite. When I ran the youth program at Magi Fest for a couple of years, the kids loved books. The kids. So what happened? What's interesting is, yes, a lot of them got into magic because of the internet, YouTube, Chris Ramsey, Scam School, all that stuff. But a lot of them went to their local libraries, and because all these old magicians are dying and their wives have no idea what to do with their collections, a lot of, like, two kids, not just one, but two kids from different parts of the country, both said their libraries had all 5 volumes of Card College.
Oh, wow.
And that they had been studying those. And there was one kid who had volume 1 of Art of Astonishment, and another kid who had volumes 2 and 3, but didn't have 1. So they pooled their money and bought a 3-volume set and then split it between them, which was really cool. So yeah, so they are. I mean, books will always be the minority, I think, just because it's, I mean, when you can buy a download or produce a download online and not have to hold stock, it's always going to be the better option. I mean, I'm no better. All my stuff at
I mean,
joediamondlive.com/store is all digital products. I am
it
working on
makes
a
sense
physical book for
financially,
sure.
right? I mean, I get
Sure,
that.
sure. But I think if you want that legacy, I think books are not going anywhere, and
Right.
books are still the best way to learn. But the downside lately I've been finding out is, like, every book is now a collector's item, and there's
Expensive
no
too.
20, 30, $40 version of it for for lower income people. So as a result of that, like, yeah, they do, or someone who's just, shipping is going to take forever to get to them. So yeah, so the fact that younger people are able to learn magic without, as my friend Brian Brushwood says, going to the gathering of secret old men who are going to teach all the young boys the value of keeping a secret, right? I think that's the less that's the case, the better our art is. And I think there's stuff that's only going to be in books. There's stuff that's only going to be, uh, uh, you know, evergreen from that standpoint. But it's also funny when you go back and when you read, like, more of, like, the magazines, like the Jinx and the letters to the editors and all that kind of stuff. Like, magicians, like, being mad about magic books being in libraries because now anyone can get them, because now
Yeah.
anyone can see the secret. So it's the same complaints we
It's
always get. One magician, for the book Modern Magic by Professor Hoffman, one magician claimed in a magic magazine that Hoffman should be hanged for putting all this in a book. And it's like, are you kidding me? Seriously? And it's like the same thing. I've gotten death threats for being on Scam School. I've,
seriously.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I've gotten, like, hey, hopefully you don't cross paths at a convention, otherwise you'll leave that convention with no teeth, and stuff like that. Like, yeah. So, which is, like,
Don't
very
make so
level
many good
headed.
friends.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. So, but again, like, that's, I don't think the barrier. I don't believe in a barrier of entry, and even if I did, I wouldn't think it's whoever has the most money. Um,
Well, I mean, so I see what you're saying here, because it's kind of like the difference between shorts and long form content. If you're teaching, right? If you're
sure.
for example, shorts where I see people just like blindly exposing magic. Sure, I don't agree with that. But a
Oh
long
yeah, of
form,
course
if
not. Of
you're going to
course not.
sit down and you're going to spend 30 minutes to watch a video to actually learn an effect, that's a completely different ball game. Most laymen are not going to sit there and watch, that long of a video unless they're actually interested in learning magic, right?
Yes. Let me see here. In Things You May Not Know About Hoffman by Brian Lead, Hoffman does say he makes the distinction between the two. He says, uh, 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 he goes into detail about, here we go, on reflection, because people were like, well, do your revelations extend to the specialities of masculine, cook, and biote? Or Bautier, as in Bautier Decolte, I believe. On reflection, this would be extremely unfair towards these gentlemen. A first class stage trick has frequently taken months or even years to bring to perfection, and while it remains a novelty, it has high commercial value. I've purposely limited my disclosures to such illusions as have been sufficiently long before the public to be fairly regarded as common party. And by the way, this is in the 1800s. Oh, yeah, there it is. Modern. Yep, right there. Right there, right there. Um, I have endeavored uh, to make my explanations as complete as possible. Uh, and Hoffman also opened one book by saying there's a vast difference between telling how a trick is done and teaching how to do it.
Right.
And Brushwood says
That hits the
from
nail
his
on the head.
standpoint, yeah, like at the end of every single scam school video, you have the capability to go out and do it yourself. Sometimes there's a marketed item that like will either show you how to make your own mark cards, or will say, hey, these are professional grade mark cards which you can get online or on the Scam Nation site or whatever. If you don't want to make this yourself, you can order this special deck here. But if you want to put the effort in, it's all here for you. And
I
that
got to
I
mention this. I have to mention
yeah,
this because I was told to mention this eventually if I ever got to speak to Brian. Big fan of Scam School, by the way. Let me just throw that out there.
yeah.
I love Scam School. That's where I actually discovered you, was through
Oh,
Scam
cool.
School.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I followed you ever since. But
Thank you.
so I interviewed Pig Cake. I'm sure you know
Okay.
who Pig Cake is. And he told me this really funny story about being drunk and like telling like this thing spreading around that he wants to fight Brian Brushwood for some reason. So I just spread the message that he was joking. He doesn't want to fight him. So I don't know
Oh,
exactly the details on this, but
Brian.
it's hilarious.
Brian is in his own little world. He is the most connected, disconnected person I think I've ever met. Like he will be on. So just for example, he showed me a proto version of ChatGPT probably in 2021. Yeah, like a long time ago. And so he's on the cutting edge of a lot of stuff. But then there's like something where it's like, oh, I have no idea what that person's talking about, or oh, I have no idea what what illusionist just put out or whatever, because he's got people who run the store and who like keep up to date with products and stuff like that for him now. So yeah, so there's a lot of that. But it's yeah, I'm sure all that's well and good. But he's actually going to. So I do a thing called Mystic Chat. If you search Joe Diamond's Mystic Chat on Facebook, there's a group. If you're not on Facebook, that's fine. Shoot me an email, joe@joediamondlive.com. I will send you the link to the free playlist. They are unlisted videos, so we do talk a little bit more openly about methods and techniques and those kinds of things. But there's no paywall. We just do that so that again, the barrier of entry is just your skill level. If you want to you know find one of these guests and they'll give you the link to it, or find me and I'll give you the link to it. Again, like I'm not going to give you a quiz for it or anything. I think the only question to get into the Facebook group is how many steps Corinda has, which is a very Googleable question, and that's just because you need a question in order to have a group like that on Facebook. So yeah, it's not from any kind of. I don't think secrets need to be protected. I think secrets are very robust. I think good secrets stand the test of time, no matter how often they're exposed. And I think a good magician can use any old method and still destroy with it. But yeah, but the Mystic Chats, I do have a Patreon for it, and the Patreon is purely literally pays for the Zoom each month, and also keeps allows people to join the chats without derailing the chats, because that did happen with one. It ended up never being posted. I did end up doing another one with that person. I won't say who it was. Uh, Respect for them, but yeah, but like there were just there's too much going on with questions that weren't really part of the conversation or not helpful to anyone. It was they were without going into it, they were being more personal than professional. We'll just go there. And so yeah, so that's the only reason I've got that is for people to join us, but it's like $10 a month. And just this last month, I'm doing a workshop on Animan in a few weeks, and
Nice.
in the Patreon, I gave a $10 off code for the Animan workshop. So basically, if you buy the Animan workshop this month, you're subscribed to the Patreon for free, technically. So yeah, so I try to make it as good of a deal as possible with all this stuff. Still try to not underprice it, but I also feel like people charging $300 for PDF is
Yeah.
is kind of crazy. I'd like to, for something like the workshop, I want to price it fairly for me and also others, but also it is going to be a one-on-one workshop. It's not going to be not one-on-one, but it's going to be a live workshop, and we'll be able to work on stuff together and talk about things and all that stuff. And I think it is the best. It's been in print for almost a century. I think people learn as much as they can from print, especially from a text like that. But I think talking with someone who's done the act for 20 years and being like, for lack of a better term, access, like I can't think of another place where you can learn an anytime, anywhere act and talk to the person who's been doing it for 20 years and get all the history and be able to it's a lost luggage act too. You can, if you turn up somewhere your luggage isn't there, you can go to Walgreens, pick up a whole show, and do a show for any sized audience. And that's the other thing too. When people say any sized audience, there's a lot of that material that won't work for smaller audiences. There's a lot of mentalism that we'll just say relies on not everyone being able to talk after. And the Animate Act does not rely on that. I've done the act for 10 best friends in a living room, and I've done it for 1,000 people and everywhere in between. It's a solid half hour. And yeah, I
I
don't think,
absolutely love that type of material too. That type of material you just
yeah,
pick up whatever's in your pockets and start performing. That's wonderful.
yeah, it should. Well, I also feel for me, one of my mentors, Ross Johnson, he always said mentalism shouldn't feel like a production. And I kind of agree, at least mind reading shouldn't.
Right.
There's exceptions to every rule, of course. And I don't see these so much as rules as guiding lights. What's going to get you closest to the mountain, where there may be something, you know, along the way that, you're now closer to the mountain. So you don't need that guiding light 10 miles back. That would just take you further away from the mountain. So now you're closer. I hope that metaphor makes sense. But yeah, but like I want to make it seem like my show is, for lack of a better term, propless. Like I'm just walking out on stage and reading people's minds for an hour. Uh, I try. The Animate Act does use like a pad and paper, but in my main show now, I write nothing down on a giant pad. And also in the entire hour, only one audience member on stage writes something down on a slip of paper or
And
billing.
just to be
Um,
clear, we can access this through your Patreon, correct?
so if you want the $10 off code, it's patreon.com/Joe Diamond Live. If you want to just sign up for the Animate Act, go to joediamondlive.com/store. The replay will be available after we do the full thing. It will be more once we've recorded it and we've done it. So I think, and that's just going to be so that the people who do sign up on time or early, do have like that more direct access and a little bit of that money saved. I want it to be an ongoing resource. So the way to do that will be, so it's 75 now, but it's going to be 100 afterwards. But the other reason for that is because not only will you be getting the full performance video of the show, the PDF of the original act, my workshop on it. I'm also going to do after the workshop, we're going to do a uh, audio commentary. Basically, you're going to watch my show and hear me talk about, oh, here's where I screwed up, or oh, here's where I handled this. See me lose my train of thought for a moment. So one of the things in the Animate Act, so it starts, the first effect starts with for lack of a better term, a bank of cards where people think of one of the 5 or 6 cards you see. And one of the cards is the Ace of Clubs, and the person on stage for the first trick in the show says they're thinking of the Ace of Spades, not the Ace of Clubs. And you will see in this video how I handle it live and still bring it around, which is something you can only get from someone who's done the act for 20 years. And right. So you're going to learn all that kind of stuff. But I think, but again, like the actual Animate Act itself, the original PDF, it's in the Library of Congress. You can get the PDF for free online. And Animate, you can get the printout of it, a physical copy of it for like $3 on most, secondhand sites and such. So it's not like it's this big giant secret that's being kept. In many ways, I think if you started with the original pamphlet, it'd be harder. But I think the other reason too, a lot of people see the original pamphlet and don't see its potential. And this is a way to kind of see its potential rather than just, looking at it and not having the again, the other thing too is you need the insight and the experience to kind of see past, the stuff where it's like, oh, that's it.
It's a lot of old school modern audiences, right?
Yeah, I think I've picked up a lot of the pace. Like there's a lot less billet switching, a lot less back and forth with stuff. But the original Animate Act, like the first trick, Magic versus Mind Reading, it does pick up pretty fast. I mean, yes, there's some, times change. Like just for example, another thing in the book is there's an effect with a phone book. Even when I started the act 20 years ago, I'd never used a phone book. So I talk about the routine I do in that place instead, and why I still feel like it fits in that place, and why it's still very much an Animan style effect and idea, and actually, in my opinion, helps the show play bigger. And that's the kind of stuff that that you do. And again, I think creators, inventors, yes, they should be, I think if they want to charge whatever they want for their creations or their time or their tutelage, I'm totally down for that. I have hours. You don't want to pay me a single cent for this Animate Act? That is fine. I have hours for free online with Brushwood and podcasts, and you can get to 99% of all my stuff without having to pay me a cent. So
speaking of that, I agree with books earlier, and for everybody, sure. I'm sure there's a lot of people here, watching this in the future that love books. They love Scam School. I just want to say I'm a real big fan of these 2 books that you can get over at Scam Stuff.
Those are great.
And they actually have the links and stuff to
videos. So what's fun?
You get the best of both worlds here.
He's supposed to post it soon. The last time I was with Brian, we played a game with these books. I challenged Brian. I read him trick names, and he had to tell me if it was in volume 1 or volume 2. And he was not happy at how bad he was at that game, which was fun. But again, even Brian himself, when people are like, oh, everyone knows this stuff, even Brian himself, there's so much to know, there's so much to comprehend, and there's so much to learn. I think Magic is a beautiful and deep art, and I don't think ignorance is the secret to keeping things a secret, and to keep people invested in what it is we're doing.
Now, I want to bring it back a little bit.
Sure.
What brought your interest to Magic? What was the first time? Were you a young man? Were you a kid? What piqued your interest in Magic, and what made you want to start learning the art form?
In the words of my dear departed friend Eugene Berger, I don't think I chose Magic. I think Magic chose me. Ministers often talk about being called to the ministry, and I really, in a real sense, feel like I was called to be a magician. I was growing up right at the beginning, right at the peak of that like 90s magic boom on TV with Copperfield and World's Greatest Magic. And I grew up outside of Chicago where there's a ton of magicians. I saw magicians at, Circus World Museum growing up. I saw them at theme parks. It's like I couldn't escape it. It's like it was kind of inevitable. And even the stuff I loved, I didn't see as connected to magic at the time. Things like, science fiction, horror, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Twilight Zone on TV.
I love
They were all
Twilight.
airing as reruns. Yeah, they were all airing as reruns on Nick at Night. And I didn't realize these were old shows. I just thought, oh, Nickelodeon becomes black and white at 8 o'clock. So whatever. So I watched all those old shows and they really had an influence on me in that, I think magic called to me because it was a way to make all that stuff in those TV shows and movies feel real for an audience. I often say my shows are not about me, they're about the audience. In a Twilight Zone episode, if there's an episode about a mind reader in a haunted location, this 9 times out of 10, that episode is not going to start with the mind reader. It's going to start with someone going to the show saying, "Oh, I don't believe in this stuff. Oh, come on, honey, have that sense of fun and adventure. We're going to this spooky location," and all this weird stuff happens that they kind of brush off. But then something happens to the main character that makes them go, "Oh, this magician is in touch with something else," or maybe not. Maybe they spot that he's a fraud and they get sucked into something else. But either way, the main character is not the magician; it's the audience member. And I feel the
You
same way with my shows. It's not about me; it's about the audience.
you have struck a nerve with me because Twilight Zone is like one of my all-time favorite shows, and that for me is like the direction, the type of magic that I absolutely love. That
Mm-hmm.
is it real? Is this really happening? Am I seeing
Yeah.
what I'm seeing? I'm
Yeah.
I'm writing a show, and it kind of has that type of theme to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that is a real Twilight Zone esque feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
Still a large work in progress. I'm still working
Sure.
on it, but yeah, that whole like Twilight Zone theme, I absolutely love it down to my core. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you really hit me with that
Good.
one.
I'm glad. I'm glad. There's a great book. I'm about halfway through reading it. It's one of the best magic theory books I've ever read. Because it's not about magic. It's called Dance Macabre by Stephen King. And it's actually like a breakdown of the history of horror in films, literature, theater, and basically breaks down the types of horror and why we respond to horror. And it's a lot of the same ways I feel about magic. I think magic has more in common with horror movies than even stand-up comedy.
Right.
Like stand-up comedy is laughter is a very it's a very momentary physical reaction. You can make anyone laugh even if they don't think it's funny.
But fear sticks.
People can, yes, and to me, it's not even fear. It's that feeling of that feeling of the show sticking with you on the car ride home. So let's just take a
Yes,
horror movie for example.
I
Let's just take
agree
a
with
horror movie for example. If you go into a horror movie and the special effects aren't that great, you see the fake head, or you
the
you
CGI.
know the CGI. Yeah, that's another good example. Or something along those lines. It is gonna take you out of the movie, but also even if you do see some of that stuff, um, if you leave that movie theater and walk through the dark parking lot and get in your car and drive home and turn some of the lights on and go to bed, some will argue that the movie failed. I'm not saying that any horror movie that doesn't do that is a piece of crap. I'm not saying horror movies or any movie that doesn't have that as a goal is a piece of crap. I'm just saying I think that's a very unique thing in the horror. And no joke, a Ouija board fell as I'm talking about this. That's hilarious. I had on display up there. That is hilarious. freaked me out. See, just like that, I got goosebumps just there. Um, so yeah, that's what I'm going for right there. I think magic's the same way. I think if you're not like if you leave the movie though and you're like double checking your back seat and turn on the lights and go, or that happens and you scream because you're extra primed from that.
Right. Even
Like
if
that's what
that thought enters your mind for a moment,
yes, yes.
that's the effect.
And to me, it's all about that car ride home. If on the way home you say, well, he was palming the lemon when he put it under the cup. Like, now what else you talk about on the car ride home? Whatever. How's your week been? All that stuff. Like, it needs to last that second show, the car ride home. Not to say there can't be moments of laughter in the show itself. Not to say it can't be hilarious. I think some of the best horror movies do have great jokes and humor in them. One of my favorites recently has been the movie Oddity. There's some really darkly funny moments in that movie. Highly recommend it. It came out last year, 2 years ago. The director's new movie Hokum is coming out like this month, which I've been hearing great things about as well. But watch Oddity. It's on Hulu. It's on Shudder. It's on all these things. I've got it on Blu-ray. It's one of the best horror movies I've seen in a long time. It's got some wonderful, meaningful jump scares, some of the best jump scares I've seen in a long time. But it's not only jump scares, but it also has a very wicked humor to it as well. Which again, I don't want to give away anything else in it that doesn't make you go. There's laugh out loud moments, I think, for sure, but there's also moments that just make you go, oh, like those kinds of moments. Not to say, but there's also those moments that stick with you. I think, well, and again, I think most magic shows, the same way that most horror movies, in my opinion, are really, what are all the complaints about them? They're generic. The special effects aren't that good, i.e. the effects aren't that deceptive. Or you don't care about the characters, i.e. you don't care about the magician. There might be one or two solid kills and you go, oh, yeah, that worked. That was pretty cool. And that might be enough for your money's worth for a lot of people watching magic. If you walk away with that one or two, like, oh my God moments, that usually gets a passing grade in this day and age. And that's the other thing too. I don't think I'm going to hit that car ride home with 100% of every audience member every single time. But it is what I'm aiming for. And if that's the moon I'm shooting for, if I land amongst the stars, I want there to be at least a few of those moments that do stick with them. And again, it's just all those, the more these are each another, bite at the apple, basically another way to stick with the audience after the fact. Because I want them going out of their way to tell their friends to come see the show. I want them coming back. I want them, I pride myself in the amount of repeat customers and regular ticket buyers that I've cultivated. And that's not by accident. That is not by accident. And I don't think I'm lucky. I think it's been, luck definitely has something to do with it, but I don't think I've only been lucky. It's been very cultivated at the same time.
So I have to ask you this: what was the first like actual magic effect you learned and performed?
What comes to mind is, every magician here will know size Stebbins of some kind. The one that comes to mind outside of like a magic kit or a book or something like that was my grandfather had this trick. Someone would pick a card. He would look at it like this and go, "You have the the ace of clubs. Yes, huzzah!" And that would be the. So I was going forward. I'm used to a different stack now, so I was going forward in that stack, not size Stebbins. But yeah, he taught that to me finally, and I got books from the library. I got a magic kit. That's like the first standout one. So it was ironically a mind reading trick. Also, Do As I Do. I remember like one of the first times doing Do As I Do with two decks. The standard method in uh, Royal Road to Card Magic. That was another very influential book for me. I actually think Royal Road is one of the best, not only books on card magic, but I also think one of the best books on mentalism ever. When you read it through the lens of
Now, that's an interesting take. I
mentalism and
don't think
mind
I've ever
reading.
heard anyone say that before.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But when you read it through the lens of that, of
I can see it, yeah, for sure.
packing, but also just packing small and playing big.
Right.
Even if you're going to do something that isn't traditionally mentalism, if it's something like I think it's called Ladies Looking Glass, where you toss the deck in the air and you catch the two cards like this between your fingers, or like this or whatever, out of the spray of cards as they're falling down, or the three cards across. It's got a lot in line with mentalism because it's talking about bringing your personality into it and making these small tricks play big, which is ultimately what mentalism is doing, or it's most known for. And I think I also have a very I also think some of the best mentalists in the world are Spanish card magicians, like uh, Danny Diortiz. If you want to learn how to talk about forcing before you want to learn
Yeah.
forcing, equivoque, psychological forces, study Danny's work. You want to learn how to do like really powerful hands off card magic, study Woody Aragon's work. Uh, I was at I got to know Woody a little bit at Magi Fest, and we still occasionally chat uh, on Facebook, but it's been a while. But he's a super friendly guy. He says everyone's my friend, everyone's my friend. But he said something fascinating because he has his own memorized stack,
Right.
and someone just kind of, I think we were waiting to go in and see Max Maven's show actually, and I sat next to him, and there were several moments where Woody was like, "How does he do that? Do you know?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, don't tell me," which is funny. But someone asked him about his stack, and he talked about people being able to shuffle it and him getting back into stack, and like they were talking like about the deck. He's like, no, the stack's not here, it's here. And it was just this wonderful like Yoda moment. Like, no, it's stack's not here. It's in here. It's you know, if the stack, if 1 through 26 gets rippled into 27 through 52, you should be able to go through and go, okay, that's from the first half, that's from the first half, that's from the. You should be able to do that like just as quickly as separating reds and blacks and get back in the stack because the stack is not here, it's here. And that to me was a major thing. And Juan Tamariz, the goat himself, in the Magic Rainbow, says there's no difference between magic and mentalism. There's a lot of people who say, oh, mentalism is different than magic, or I'm not a magician, I'm a mentalist. Tom Maurice himself says all magic is mentalism because it
Yeah.
all takes place inside the minds of the audience.
I agree with that. I don't really see a separation. I don't think there should be a segregation between the two. I think there
No.
are some performers out there that see themselves as, oh, I'm not a magician, or vice versa, right? But
Which
I
is
think
fine.
they
Which,
are
let
the
me be
same
clear about
people.
that. That is fine. But I think so. So to me, we're not getting so much into. That's when we're getting more into world building
Right,
versus
right,
even character development,
right.
which I kind of feel like if you build a world, everyone says, "Oh, I want to work on my character, or this or that," and I don't feel too much about. I've never felt that way. I've always just been me. But the world I inhabit is, these weird old mansions and odd haunted items or strange collectibles, those kinds of things. And the audience is coming into my world. I did a show called Mystic. It was for 13 people at a time in a small room in an arts park, and we sold out like 3 years worth of shows doing this. It was a blast, and it was billed as a more of a mind reading show, but the premise of the show was I talked about different mystics from throughout history. So I started with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes. I then went and get into Edgar Casey, the Sleeping Prophet. I then talked about Alexander with the crystal ball and looking into it, and I divined what people were thinking in a crystal ball. And then right after I do very heavy mind reading, looking into a crystal ball, describing the person they're thinking of, I talk about Howard Thurston and the Wonder Show of the Universe, and how Thurston could throw cards into the laps of people in the audience. And I have a genuine Howard Thurston throwing card, and this is on Scam Nation. I teach it. I do a boomerang effect where it boomerangs and I catch it in the deck next to a card someone has selected, but we don't know what it is. And it's mentalism adjacent because no one knows what card is in their pocket. And I say, in order to do this, I'd have to psychically know what card is in your pocket, psychically know where its mate is in the deck. Then, after executing a perfect boomerang, catching the card in the exact spot, or I can just rely on luck. Howard Thurston said it was not the skill of his hand, but the luck of the cards that always led the cards to his target. And then throw it, catch it. It's next to the mate. Which again, a boomerang trick isn't a trick you'd normally think of in a mentalism show.
That's
Like
true.
it's not. But because I'm thinking about the world of different mystics, it fit the world, it fit the theme, it fit in a good place in the show where it was after something so strong. It's like, how do you top that? And the way you do that is you don't. You then do something that's so totally different. Something that's seemingly propless. They're thinking of a historical celebrity or figure, and I'm describing it in a crystal ball, and it's super weird. You can feel the energy shift through the room. So going from that into something completely the opposite, that's just skill based, really worked. Really, really worked. And again, it was based on not because I thought it was okay to mix magic and mentalism, or not okay to mix magic and mentalism. It was all in service of the world. And when you look at like top performers like Darren Brown, Burgess, Max Maven as well. Max did a fair amount of combinations of magic and mentalism and mental magic. He had a great definition for because mentalists always like to say, "Oh, I don't do mental magic. You do mental magic. I do mentalism." And Max just said, what they're really saying is, all of you do mental magic. I do mentalism, which is so on the nose. Like that's every mentalist who says that. Like try to like elevate themselves.
Right.
And some of it is like, yeah, some of it is like, it's kayfabe, it's professional wrestling. You want to differentiate or talk about it. And just for example, in psychics versus science, I am going to lean more into, because I do belong to several, for lack of a better term, metaphysical communities, and I have friends in the metaphysical field. I'm not as much of a diehard skeptic as most magicians. I do have weird and quirky beliefs, but I try not to throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to science and stuff. And there will be some, for lack of a better term, genuine intuitive readings in the show, and some genuine experiments that I've had real success with. And I'm not sure how, and even Tony has, Dr. Barnhart has admitted he doesn't have an answer that's fully acceptable for him for some of that stuff when it comes to like
That's
pendulums and other
I
stuff.
think that a lot of people, run into, is that they think science has an answer for everything, and the honest truth is they don't.
Sure. I think science does. I think again, too many people throw like knowing and understanding science just helps you just think for yourself so much more. Like it's the opposite of what people say. Oh, I don't listen to what they say. It's like no, what you're saying is actually the opposite. However, my love for my wife can't be measured in a lab. Your favorite sports team's success or failure can't be measured and quantified in a lab. There's a lot of statistics. There's lots of fantasy football and all this kind of stuff to map all that out. But you can't science a 100% win every single game all the time team.
Right.
And that's okay. I think like the line I say in my shows, and I do genuinely believe this. I think mind reading is an art, not a science. And I mean real mind reading. I mean, when we get into things like actual telepathy, contact mind reading, some of the early uh, J.B. Ryan experiments. And again, when you actually read the actual history of these things, um, like you read the history of mind readers and like theaters and stuff, and it was like the 1800s, and people were accusing them of having like radio waves and the carpets they were standing on and all that stuff. So it's like proving we're not using electronics is something we've had to prove since almost the very beginning of our art form. Um, and yeah, which kind of makes me feel brings me on to another tangent of like why, like I have people all the time checking. I use exclusively pencils and clear pens in my mentalism shows, and people will still check them to make sure there's no cameras in them. So why people use electronic pens and Ouija boards and all this stuff for their actual magic. And the truth of the matter is 99% of the people buying those things aren't performers. Because yeah, they do it once or twice to their friends and then sits in their junk drawer like everything else. And that's okay. I think magic and mentalism is a wonderful hobby and a wonderful pastime and all that stuff. But like, yeah, I don't want to be stuck on stage and suddenly not feel a buzz against my ankle. I'm one of the few mentalists I know of that uses absolutely zero electronics in anything that they do.
Really? Huh. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the closest I had a Turner watch at one point. It barely worked. I threw it away. Like legitimately, I threw it in the garbage. Uh, I didn't even try to resell it to someone. I played around with an app that like someone searched like a location on a map, but like several times it failed and just ended up on the performer's website. So that was weird when my prediction was another magician's website. That was kind of strange and kind of hard to back out of. So I just gave up, and I'm like, you know what? I am not going to use anything in my act that would not have been used 100 years ago by someone like Animan or
I mean, if all else
uh,
fails, I mean, when you're not using these electronics and stuff like that, you have everything you need to perform.
yeah, exactly. And a few people I really respect do use some electronics sparingly, and I think that's fine. That's absolutely allowed. They also test the batteries before they go out on stage and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with any method. Whatever. I'm also in the Animan camp of if you really need to fool one person in a let's say 8 people, it's okay for the other 7 people to be stooges. Like I'm 100% okay with that. I taught an effect in my penguin lecture that used double stooging, which I think is still a very underutilized technique and something that I'm really really proud of. Um, but again, it has to use sparingly. But I think any method. I think if you use a nail writer for everything, eventually people are going to be like, why does his thumb start twitching every single time we name a number? Like why do we always have to write it down and he has to and ah while futzing with that folded piece of paper? Why does it always have to be written on this giant clipboard that's this thick? I think if you're using any method too much, it's gonna become transparent, of course.
Right.
But I think, yeah, and I don't think there's any method that's, to a certain extent, I don't think any method is, for lack of a better term, unethical. Some people have said, oh, if you use stooging, it's cheating, or if you use pre-show, it's cheating, or if you use electronics, it's cheating. It's like, no, our job is to create an illusion. Our job is to create a
Yeah.
feeling. I'm not, morally against, that kind of stuff. I just, um,
Our job is to
so, so, uh,
entertain, and
so I'm gonna tell a story. I don't think I'll get in trouble for this. I won't say who it was, but there was I'm good friends with someone who has been in like big touring productions. They do mentalism. They've been in massive shows, and they did a thing in one of their shows where uh, they would be on stage and a stagehand would have a clipboard in the balcony, and what the person drew on the clipboard and the balcony would appear on like spirit slates down on the stage, and or he would divine what they were or something. I don't think it was spirit slates actually. I think it was I think that was something else. But anyway, long story short, you know, now in a big touring show like this, you when you the rig to lift things up and down, all this different. It's actually shocking how much of that stuff isn't electronic. Like whenever like a door opens on something, it's not just a push button thing. It is very often in like stage illusions, manual pulleys, all that stuff. But there's still, in a touring show, a lot of electronics. So that's just one more piece of electronics in the big touring show. So it's kind of like, and there's someone whose job it is to make sure it's in there and everything. Well, one day this mentalist went to check the battery and noticed it had died. And he plugged it in. He told the stagehand, "Oh, I just checked it. It died." He's like, "Oh yeah, no, it died like 3 cities ago." He's like, "But I've been getting the info on stage." He's like, "Yeah, I just keep spacing on resetting it. So I have them make the drawing, and then I just look at what they have, and as I hand them the envelope and say, 'Here, fold it up and put it in this envelope.' And then as I walk backstage, I just say in my headset, yeah, they drew a boat." Which to me, honestly, is the better method. So he was like, "Well, we're not," but and again, the producer paid for that that prop and
less
everything
likely
too.
to fail that way, I would imagine.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, exactly.
Means the method
And
is
so it's
stronger.
one less thing.
Yeah.
In many ways, I think so as well. And it's one less thing for two people to worry about beforehand. There's that as well. And again, but again, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. I mean, I still check to make sure if I'm using pens and pencils, I make sure, I scribble each pen before the show to make sure they work. So I don't have someone on stage going, "Oh, this pen doesn't work." And sometimes I forget, and sometimes that happens, and I'm like, "Oh crap, I really should have done that." So that's happened. There have been invisible decks that the roughing stick. You hear more of a as you spread the cards. It's like, "Oh, I really should have." Separate all those before the show. I mean, it happens to all of us for sure. What I'm saying is, if it's electronics, no one's going to mess up my show other than me, and I'm not going to pay a couple $100s to have something like that screw up.
Right.
I can screw up my show on my own. Thank you very much.
So I want to take,
but it's also a method that people say too. So yeah,
I want to take a 180 turn now, and because I know you, your shows have a lot to do with like the paranormal type of things. So I want to get your take on a lot of this stuff.
Sure.
Well, and also I saw in your Fool Us act, you mentioned crop circles and where you're from.
Yep.
So what is your take on what's being released right now, or released by the United States government, saying they've been slowly admitting to certain things, alluding that the possibility that we have technology and biological beings, and what's your take on that?
Sure. I mean, duh. Of course. But also, I don't want to get too conspiracy theory or political in any context. I think, at least right now, in April of 2026, releasing and talking about that stuff is, fortunately, unfortunately, for the good or ill of everything, mostly being done to distract from other stuff, and I'll just leave it at that. I think there's more important stuff the government could be upfront with us about, and that we could know more about, and we could actively fix. But those are my own personal, for lack of a better term, political beliefs. I think 99% of people would probably, on all sides, believe or agree with me in their own way. We might disagree on what those things are, but I think we can almost all agree there's some more important things in the pressing moments now.
I agree.
That said, I think there's a lot of there's a lot of cool approaches that I think we're not taking advantage of enough in mentalism when it comes to things like aliens, UFOs, uh, or UAPs, those kinds of things. I've incorporated a little bit of this kind of stuff into my work. I've had a routine in my show that's gone in and out that's been about crop formations. I don't do it a ton for various reasons. It's still not fully there as far as I'm concerned, but I think doing a lot of uh, things with like lost time and people not knowing where they were and all this stuff. There's some great. If you're into UFOs and everything, I actually just rewatched this last night, 2 nights ago. VHS Beyond. It's in the VHS franchise of found footage stuff. It's a anthology of found footage tapes. Uh, some say they've jumped the shark, but I think they've become more fun. And they have one called Beyond. There's one that has nothing to do with aliens or UFOs, in my opinion, but there's some cool stuff in it that have to do with like grays and other odd. Because ultimately, going back to the horror analogy, it's cosmic horror. The movie Strange Harvest, arguably, it's a cosmic. Well, I kind of spoiled it just now saying it's cosmic horror because it looks like a found footage at the start. But whoopsie, sorry, spoilers. Go watch Forget what I said and go watch Strange Harvest anyway. But I think there's lots to look at, and I think it's a good thing to kind of allow yourself to look into this stuff and not, kind of feel that push and pull of belief in yourself and decide if that's what you want to give your audiences, whether it's with aliens, telepathy, spells, magic, whatever, because there's that kind of push and pull right now for people specifically with aliens. But I think it's a very fertile ground to draw from presentationally rather than, NLP and body language and all the same well that every other magician mentalist is pulling from.
You keep it on the track with the paranormal stuff. You mentioned you had Ouija board.
Yeah. So this is what fell. So technically,
when it comes to spirits and that type of stuff, because there's a similarity between that and like the pendulum and how things operate. Sure. But is there more to it, or at least in your belief, do you think there's more to it?
Well, first off, let me just fully explain. It actually technically wasn't a Ouija board that fell. It is a Joe Diamond branded Oracle board because Ouija is trademarked. This is not a Ouija board. This talks to aliens, as a matter of fact. In fact, it's also for decoration only because technically there are some credit card companies that you or I may or may not use to sell merch after shows, and it is illegal or is against their policy for you to sell occult objects. So this is not an occult object. This is for decoration only. There's a completely separate sticker on the back to show you how to use it as a Ouija board with a glass if you want to, but you're not buying a sticker. You're buying this decoration only, right? No one would buy $20, pay $20 for that sticker, right? Yeah, so that's how I've covered all my legal tracks with this. No, I don't. I don't think there's anything. I think the science is pretty much out the door with that stuff. That shows that it is us. Some people still feel like, well, the ghosts could take over us, or the spirits or energy could take over us, and I see where that can come in with like something like a pendulum. I don't feel that way with a Ouija board. I don't see any difference between. I think it is mind over matter. I don't think it's ghosts. That said, I don't think it's any less powerful. I think the fact that our minds can do this is super amazing, and I think it's more impressive than if Mark Twain is writing his book to us from beyond the grave through it. Which, by the way, look that up. It's in the public domain now. There's a whole legal battle. Someone claimed to have channeled Mark Twain and wrote an after his death book trying to say that it was written by Mark Twain, and his family We're like, no, you can't do that. But it's a fascinating story. Jap Heron, I believe, is the name of the book. Look it up. Look up that story. It's a fascinating history. That's the other thing, just in general. Look at the history of paranormal. Look at the history of magic and all this stuff and where they overlap. It's ripe with presentations and ideas, and there's no reason we should all be talking about body language and NLP. There is zero reason. There's so many other things we could be talking about.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot of different ways to explain things and create a story and build upon everything that's come before us.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Do you have I don't want to say a favorite magician, but do you have some inspirations that like really, really, made you want to elevate your level in your career? Like who has inspired
Absolutely.
you?
Easy question. Definitely Ross Johnson. His He's been so helpful. The book on his full repertoire just came out, and it was funny. I called him when I pre-ordered it, and this just shows how great Ross is. I'm like, "Hey Ross, I pre-ordered your book." He's like, "What the hell do you do that for? You know everything in that book. Like, this is the dumbest thing you could have bought. You know everything. Buy something you could actually learn something from. Seriously, kid. What's been the point of me talking to you for years, decades about this stuff? You're just gonna buy the book like everyone else," which was hilarious and was his way of saying thank you. So I appreciate that. His mentor, as well as mine, again dearly departed and missed, Eugene Berger. Eugene was a huge inspiration. His background in philosophy and religion. We when we didn't have lunch a lot, but when we would, it would go into less magic tricks and more about just philosophy and life and death and religion and um, yeah, some really like we got in some really deep stuff and not just about magic and what the meaning of this trick is, which is still
Right.
deep and still amazing and still wonderful, but uh, got to got to really connect with him on that. Uh, love Darren, of course. Darren, I think Darren Brown's Notes from a Fellow Traveler, I think is a master class in so many ways. Um, Chris Carter, his book came out last year. Chris has been wonderful. Chris is. I think it's great that Chris and Ross both have their books out because they both have grown up. I grew up in the Chicagoland area. I've learned a lot from both of them. I've heard what they like agree on, what they disagree on, and looking at their books and seeing the differences in approach, I think is fascinating. I think it's a good reminder of like the ways you can go in our art. Um, didn't know him nearly as well, but watched him perform live a lot while he was alive. Max Maven, did get a chance to talk with him a few times. Max was phenomenal. His 2-hour show was phenomenal. A lot of magicians I love who are dead that I never got to see. I love Matt Schulian's approach to magic and card magic and boldness. Animan, of course, the way Animan thinks. Which, by the way, everyone talks about being too young to do mentalism and such. Animan put out the one man mental and psychic routine, the Animan Act, when he was 28, and he was 34 when he died. I'm now older than Animan ever was.
A lot of people don't
Which
even realize, some of the greatest people in history. I mean, look at the founding fathers in their actual
that,
age during
yeah,
the
yeah,
time
as
of,
well.
creating this country. A lot of people think they'll think of them as being old people, but that's factually what's the fact
Yeah,
is not at all.
yeah, exactly. Well, and yeah, but now that said, Animan had major, mental health issues, and
Right.
yeah, I don't think everyone should take everything he says about magic and performance to heart. I think you're set up for a very very sad life, like he had, unfortunately. But man, imagine if, in the modern era, if he could have gotten the help he clearly needed and could have gotten at this time very easily at this point in human history. Who knows what else he would have invented? Like seriously, yeah, yeah, really, really fascinating stuff there. Um,
So you know
Tony
what?
Doc Shields too. Doc Shields. Look up Doc Shields if you want to know more
Doc
about magic, the paranormal, all this stuff. Doc Shields was a wild, wild dude. I never got to meet him, but I'm Facebook friends with his daughter, and I know some people who did get a chance to know him. Uh, and yeah, basically he was a famous like leading member of the bizarre magic community, but he also got famous in Scotland and in the UK for summoning the Loch Ness monster with his witchcraft coven. And this is a guy who wrote about cups and balls too. And yeah, look up Tony Doc Shields. And yeah, yeah, we need more whimsical crazy people, not destroy the timeline crazy people.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me about it. less
uh,
less mentally ill and more like fun, fun crazy, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So I was just as you were talking, I was thinking about this. If you had a time machine and you can
Mm,
visit any performer, now this is not limited to the past. If you see an upcoming performer that has impressed you and you want to see how they progress in the future, or you would like to visit someone from the past, who would you choose? You got one trip.
Only one trip there and back.
Yeah.
Okay, so okay, uh, very quick. I would definitely go to the past because the future comes soon enough. Uh, and yeah, I think magic has a bright future. But that's for me to discover my place in it or not as it comes. You know. So I don't need to get in the way more. Basically, in the past, oof, it would probably be a toss up between Matt Shulian or Max Malini, probably. Um, from what I hear, Animan was not a super strong performer. He was very nervous. He's all like in all the performance photos of him, he's like super drunk, and but apparently like his combination of gin and panic made him seem psychic. But I think now, knowing what we know about addiction and mental illness and stuff, I think it would, I think it would be heartbreaking. I hate to say sad because I think that's oh that's sad. No, I think it would genuinely be heartbreaking. So I'm not super sure, and I think he was a genius. Don't get me wrong, but like every genius has,
Yeah.
their issues and stuff.
Sure.
So yeah, probably if it was performer, yeah, I would probably because I have mentors and people in my life who saw Matt Shulian perform, and I've seen some old. So I'm actually friends with the Shulian family, and they've got some old silent footage of like some like costume parties and stuff. So being able to see Matt, walking around like he's almost like dancing around, and like everyone, he's touching people, he's hugging them, he's kissing women on the cheek, he's kissing men on the cheek. He's just a super lovable guy. And him sitting at a table doing card. It's very easy to see him sitting at a table doing card tricks with people and just involving and engaging everyone. Would love, seeing that. And I did get to see. I think Malini would win out because I got to see Matt's uh, grandson Bobby Shulian perform, and he was a spitting image of his dad Ed, who looked a lot like Matt too. So yeah, he looked like a Shulian. So I was able to watch him do some of that like Chicago style, old school. Pick a card. It's under the tablecloth now. Just control, just very bold. I'm gonna chuck this card under the tablecloth. Not only when you're not looking, but without you seeing and without you feeling it happen. just really fascinating to watch. So because I saw him and I had that kind of glimpse, I still want to see Matt, but if it was a one trip kind of deal, I would go for the one I had no chance to see or any glimpse of, which would probably be Malini. Let's see how many of the stories about how amazing, because that's the other thing. You hear all these magicians tell stories of like T. Nelson Downs. He took the center stage of a circus with 3 matches, and he held the whole audience spellbound. And yeah, that very well may have happened, but also it may have been Guy Vernon and Tommy Downs all having a drink one night, going, "Hey, whoever dies first, say the other one did a circus, took the center ring in a circus with matches and held the whole place." Because like you don't see that like in any write-ups or anything. Like with Malini, there's actual like write-ups of how amazing he is from press and such. But like yeah, but there's a little bit of me where it's like when you hear like, oh, so and so would do the diamond penny on stage. It's like, well, was it any good? Like you never hear a layperson go, "Oh my God, I saw this guy when I was a kid. It was in this massive theater, 2,000 people. One person held a dime, another person held a penny." You never hear that story quite as much. I've heard similar kinds of stories, but mostly about again close-up performers and such. But seeing Malini perform was would be pretty great. I saw Steve Cohen's show last year, and he does a lot of the Malini stuff. And it was amazing to watch him do it. And I've got his Malini book, but yeah, that would probably be at the top of my time travel list.
Okay. Now, talking about Chicago, Chicago has a lot of heavy hitters when it comes to magic. Like a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, yeah.
I,
Still,
why is that? What do you think?
uh, like in general over time, or like
But yeah,
lately,
over
like
time.
over time. Well, I think for starters, just over time. I mean, it makes sense that uh, it's the center of the country. Like all the trains would come through and stuff. So like eventually, someone would come through and teach Matt or one of the bartenders another trick, either on their way to one coast or to another. It's the very mid of the Midwest. There's a lot of that. I think I think there's something about the vibe, and I haven't been to too many other cities. I only went to New York for the first time this last year. There's definitely these vibes that different cities have, and Chicago, at least old school Chicago, still had like that Midwest nice vibe to it, of like a very big small town, and I think that's why Close Up Magic did so well, particularly here with Bert Allerton and Matt Schulian and all that. Now, I think a big part of it is, you know, there's, there's amazing performers in LA. There's amazing performers in venues in New York, and I think there's, I think Magic is definitely in another golden age with the multiple venues and going from me and one other guy doing a show for 10 years. That was the only show going in Vegas or going in Chicago. It was me and David Parr doing the Magic Cabaret for like the better part of 10 years. There were other monthly shows like Magic Chicago and stuff, but we were the only weekly show for the better part of a decade. So the fact that there's now like all these other shows back and venues back and 7 days a week, it's wonderful. It's really really wonderful. My current goals are to kind of create my own niche again, my own world in a sense, with not just the venues I perform in now in the Midwest, like the Woodstock Opera House and the uh, Maxwell Mansion. I'm trying to be like my own, like kind of small town legend, if that makes sense. Like kind of like people like, oh yeah, have you seen this person, or kind of the way someone like Dr. David Hoy was. Like he was very well known in his area with between his radio shows and his stage shows and everything, and he had like a very kind of mythic quality to him. And he did that by carving out his own niche. So I am very much in my. That said, with Ben Barnes from the Lounge, who I've known Ben so long. He came to my high school graduation party. That's how long I've known him. But like, yeah, if he reaches out and it says, hey, you want to do a week or something, as long as I'm not already booked for something, that's the hard thing too, because it's like, without getting too crass and too into money, it's like, I can make selling my own tickets. I make usually what a week pays at the lounge. So it's just harder to find the time when it's like they want me slash I don't have, I can't do my show, whether the Maxwell has a wedding or something that night. I'd love to, I'm always up to chatting about it. And I've gone down to see certain friends working when they're in town or so on. But again, it's the one downside with making this your career is that you don't get to hang out and play as much, which again, going on tour with Dr. Barnhart, going on tour with another magician, we'll be able to hang out and play during the day before we got to go to work and do the show. Like, hey, here's a card trick I read about, or oh, here's something else. So I think the community is great. I love going down there when I can. Just shy of an hour away from the Magic Lounge. But again, just with everything else and work, it's something that uh, and again, there's all the new places opening in Chicago and all over the country as well. Magic is going through a sort of renaissance between touring shows and venues and everything else. And I think, yeah, I'm thrilled that Chicago is becoming once again becoming a hub for it and
Yeah.
becoming like a place that's synonymous with it. Because that's the thing too, like as wonderful as, like, without ever having gone to the Magic Castle, as wonderful as it is, it's not going to be the most famous thing in LA.
Right.
It's just not going to. The same way, Chamber Magic, Steve Cohen show, it's number one on TripAdvisor. It's been going for over 25 years and everything else, but it's still not Broadway. Broadway is more known than Steve Cohen, and Steve Cohen is amazing. He charges Broadway prices and gets huge celebrities coming in and all that stuff. But I think now that it's been over coming up on a decade since the Cubs won the World Series, I think Chicago as a culture, as a city, is ready to kind of reignite its artistic identity. And it's because it's had so many identities because of sports and all this other stuff, architecture. And I think like having this, and then of course the comedy boom, there was Second City and everything. I think comedy and magic are really set to have a big boom in Chicago, to the point where not just in the industry, but like people hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years know, like, oh, you can go to Chicago and see a different magic show every night of the week and still have enough to go back and see another time, which I think is amazing.
Now I gotta ask you, how did you get involved with Brian Brushwood and Scam School?
I saw Brian do a college show a million years ago, and he kind of forgot that's how we met, but we text a few times after that. I'll go more into that in a moment. And then I sent him some stuff to teach. He taught one, but then realized there were some extra notes I had on it. So he called me and was like, hey, are you okay if we continue teaching this? And I'll fly you out and we can have you do some stuff. I was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. So that was like 2018. And I've been out to Texas like once a year, once every other year. There was one year where I went out there like 4 times in a year, like right after they bought Modern Rogue World Headquarters. I just slept there and stayed
literally
there.
talked to you at the beginning of the whole Scam School thing.
The first things I did when I went out there was I taught the haunted key. I taught a pendulum routine. I taught a quantum nose move.
I perform your version of the haunted key every Halloween.
Thank you. Thank you.
I never missed
so I'll wrap up with a story about the haunted key in a moment, which I'm really proud of. But going back to when I first met Brian, I saw on Twitter back in like 2000, had to have been 2011. he was like, "Hey, in such and such Wisconsin tomorrow at 11:30 a.m., which is known as a nooner in the college market." And I typed it in and it was like an hour north of where I was living at the time. So I was like, "Screw it, I'm gonna drive up and see Brian Brushwood." I saw Brian Brushwood perform in a cafeteria, not a theater, in a cafeteria. Had a stage and everything. But it was in a cafeteria at 11:30, and he did the full show. He did the straitjacket, fire eating, the cutting off the tongue, the human blockhead, Mr. Happy Pants, the whole show. And I was one of maybe 20 people at the front of the room watching the show. Everyone else was just having lunch in the background and like talking to each other and like doing homework.
Yeah.
And it was one of the best shows I've ever seen. Like I've seen Matt King a couple times. I've seen Penn and Teller, of course, not just, in person, but like, I went to see them first time I went to Vegas. Lance Burton's show was great. Lance is a great guy. I've been able to chat with him on the Mystic Chat. But like Brian's show was so well structured and so like it was one of those things where even Steve Martin talks about this. Like anyone can be great. Anyone can have like the hot audience and just absolutely crush. But to have a solidly good show, no matter what, even if it's a nooner and most of the room isn't watching, it was still amazing. It was still great. Brian delivered for everyone who stuck around and watched. He got the standing ovation at the end. Check still cashed and everything, and yeah, it was great. With the Haunted Key, this I'm really this warms my heart. My good friend Christian Cagigal did a tour with a Magical Cirque Christmas a few years ago, which is there's acrobats, there's one of the drummers from America's Got Talent was in it, and he was like the magician / ringmaster, and he did like 3 tricks specifically in the show. So for starters, he steps out and like conjures the circus. Now, granted, it was in front of the projection screen and everything, so he goes like this, and like the magic and the snow and all that happens. But in character, he conjures the show, and everyone comes out to him first taking the stage. He then did an effect where they drums appear for the drummer from America's Got Talent. He finished with making it snow because, of course, it's a Christmas show. And then in the middle, he did my Haunted Key and Out to Lunch routine, which there's a presentation in my book, Journal Alchemy, which is available from Vanishing Ink. All my stuff, you can access it through joediamondlive.com/store, my Penguin lecture, the write-up of the, while people can learn and do the Haunted Key from the YouTube video, I have a lot of professional touches that aren't in that video that you have to read and such. So yeah, but you can still do it. You can still perform it and everything. But as far as like the professional grade secrets, it's in there. I think that book's like only like $10 or $12 on. It's an ebook on Vanishing Ink. But Christian did it. They had a camera person projecting it onto the massive screen, and he would bring a kid up, and they would unlock someone's heart to the magic of Christmas. As cheesy as this sounds, a kid holding his hand, eye level, watching that key turn, these kids' faces, and 2,000 people all going, oh, like as it's happening. And then when they lift their hand and he shows that the signed drawing of the locked heart is now unlocked, and everyone went, oh, hearing 2,000 people gasp to something, I came up with my best friend Bill Cook, just in like a random, like, what about just this kind of thing? It was so great. And guess what? No one was leaving that show Googling magic key trick. Right. What do you know? Anyway, but it was just, it's almost like the magic has nothing to do with the tricks or the secrets. But anyway, again, getting back down off that horse. But yeah, that was just amazing to watch. And it was, again, like the fact that, so yes, he did have the help of audio visual with the camera and the screen, but having watching someone do that close up trick for 2,000 people and having them all gasp was a really special thing. And
Now
you got to
maybe.
experience it every night. I only got to see it once.
Oh man, oh no. Yeah, you got to see it again because that sounds like that's especially like you said, 2,000 people, gasping
Yeah,
at that
yeah,
is amazing. I've always gotten great reactions from it. Um,
yeah.
so there's something that has been bothering me for a long time, and I've asked multiple different people. I've gotten different answers. I want to see your take on it.
Mhm.
Scam School. Uh, I remember watching it on Spike TV. Now I don't know if this is a Mandela effect or what's going on here, because I tried looking it up and I can't find anything about it airing on Spike. Do you know if it ever aired on television like that?
That's a Brian question.
Okay, I
I
know.
know some people, some places have picked it up. It's like for example, it was some clips of it have been on Disney Plus in the show I Wonder. Mostly clips of him with his daughter. And like I know some clips. For a while, it was like on airplanes where you can watch like different like shows and stuff on airplanes. There was a few episodes back when the show was through revision 3, but that's a Brian question. Uh, but
I've been trying to get an answer to this because it's been driving me crazy.
it might be a Mandela effect, maybe. Because hacking the system was National Geographic rather than uh, uh,
Spike, right?
Spike. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about your experience performing on Fool Us for Penn and Teller,
Mhm.
um, and what made you specifically choose the effect that you
I
performed?
didn't. I didn't. I sent in
Really?
60 tricks, and that's the one they said yes. I've
I
submitted every single year for Fool Us. I've
yeah,
submitted 2 or 3 things some years. Some years I've sent 5. We did the math and added up over all the seasons because there were a few seasons where they liked something, but they asked me for like something else similar to it, and added up all the videos were about 60. And for some reason, it was the trick I did on Fool Us. It was or not on Fool Us on Scam School,
right.
Scam Nation with Brian, where I fooled him and our buddy Dez with it. The producers saw that and were like, "Yeah, let's do that." And broke all the rules everyone says, like don't submit a card trick, don't this, don't that, blah blah blah. It just the producers were like, "Yeah, we want that." I wish I could give you if
Because
if
I've
I had
heard
if I
them
had
I've heard them speak and say that card tricks is like one of the things that fools them the most. So,
yeah, but they get I think they purposely tell people don't send cards because they just always get more card
so many.
submissions.
Yeah.
So yeah, so for whatever reason, luck of the draw that day when they were clicking through videos and saw that one, they really liked that trick. So and I lived with it for 4 months, writing it, rewriting it. I paid to have Luke Germain consult on the script.
Oh, really?
Spidey consulted on the script and method. My buddy Alexander Marsh consulted on the script and method. Yeah, and I sent it to every single one of my friends. I worked on it every single day. Uh, in the airport flying to Vegas, uh, in the coffee shop, I asked 2 girls like, "Hey, I'm going to Vegas to film for a TV show. Can I practice it for you? Like, can you be Penn? Can you be Teller?" Like, I lived with that trick for 4 months. And so yeah, so the only advice I really have is if anyone submits anything, I know submissions are open again right now, but make sure it's a trick you're willing to live with for at least 4 months, because I mean, if it was anything else, I would be performing that at every show too. Like, because it's a trick that I already teach online, which is funny too, because I've had lay people say, "Oh, I tried watching how the tutorial or watching how you did that, and I gave up after 10 minutes. I couldn't follow it," which is hilarious. Um, but yeah, but it's also the trick is it's the excuse to get on TV and show off the. That's one of the things Brian told me too. He's like, it's an excuse for you to show the best version of who you are to millions of people, not whether or not two old dudes recognize the method you're using from an old book or
I just wanted to say
not.
your performance of it was beautifully done.
Thank you.
And
And the
it's so
walk off
amazing
gag,
that you told me Spidey and Luke Germain, go over the
yeah,
scripting for
yeah,
that's amazing.
worth every penny, worth every penny. It was like, that's the thing too. Like like, and here's the thing too. Like I think so. The original thing that the hosts, not the hosts, the producers wanted me to do, they wanted me to do the trick with tarot cards. And I think it might have fooled them with tarot cards, but like a month before we filmed, they were like, actually, can you just do it with regular cards? Um, so there were some things with tarot that kind of ended up on the cutting room floor that I was really excited about with working with Luke and Spidey on. But at the end of the day, I realized if it was with tarot cards, I feel like it would have been the tarot card trick, and I would be the tarot guy, But now I just get to be me, which I think was a big advantage in many ways.
Now, one of the things I thought when I was watching it, right, that was like in the back of my head, I was wondering, I'm like, is he going to perform it, the exact way that you would normally perform it, but then switch the method as sort of like a red herring?
Yeah, you're not allowed to do that. That would have Mike Close would have put a stop to that right then and there. Yeah. So the other cool thing too is Mike Close, who knows all sorts of magic and does all sorts of magic, and like he's a genius. He admitted that since we had been working on the show, he started doing this trick again for people, which I thought was kind of cool. Like, oh, like out of all the stuff people are doing, and he's seeing like for this whole season, this is the thing where he's like, I'm gonna start doing this again. This is a good thing here. Yeah, Mike was great. He had some great notes for making a play on TV. Yeah, no, I mean it's the biggest thing that was the biggest challenge. Honestly, was because I had the idea of the walk off gag of I predict I will not fool Penn and Teller, and I walked through that with Brian for like an hour one day, because he was like, you don't want to tick them off, you don't want to invoke something like the $1 million challenge with James Randi because he had just died and all this stuff. Like, you want to keep it fun, and you also, and it was his advice to walk off stage with that dumb piece of paper like it was the prize, because in a way it was. And I'm really, yeah, like as far as, because I see a lot of people, they just say, nope, that's not it. Okay, bye. And now they just walk off stage kind of weird. Like the best ones, like Piff, Jonathan Burns, they all have like a really good walk off gag or bit to do. Brian, he was eating a bill. He was like, hey, some people want to examine the bill. So he started tearing it up and eating it and walked off stage, just eating the bill. So, yeah, so having Brian work with me just on that, just on what's going to be the last 10 seconds, 5 seconds of the whole thing. We worked on nailing the scripting of, and I still fumble with the paper when I take it out. I had actually practiced folding it and unfolding it, and I just had before the show put it in my pocket the wrong way because of course I did. It should have been boom, boom.
Yeah, right?
But it was like you can see me fumble with it, just the adrenaline and everything else. But overall, I'm very happy with it. I know some people who have had some just struggles with TV in general. And that's the other thing. 4 months for one self working card trick. And like it's impossible. Any TV magic is impossible. I'm not gonna complain about a single TV magic performance show of any era, past, present, future, ever again, because doing magic on TV is literally impossible.
That's crazy. It's funny. Did you teach this twice on Scam School,
Yes,
right?
yes. Brian had me back on, and we filmed a second tutorial. Because yeah, that's the thing. I filmed that first tutorial back in like 2021, like 5 years ago now. That's like a million years in YouTube years, So yeah, last time I went on, we filmed me reteaching it along with like clips of it, um, clips of the actual his performance and my performance. I'm really proud of how that came out, and I think because yeah, that's the other thing too. It's like when you're on a show like that, people are going to go, underneath the video is going to be a tutorial. It may as well be more of your name and your face and make it,
Yeah,
how can we make it less about the trick and more about us, Um, and
I sort of like I beat you
yeah,
to it.
not even that, just like, I think there's got to be I think there's got to be a level of, I think it's just a level of respect with the audience. Like, I can't tell you everything, but like, yeah, I'll tell you this one thing I did on TV because that's the other thing. It's not the best for walk around. I'll admit that too. It's a very specific kind of card trick. But the great thing too is like for a layperson, any card force, any key card thing, I can say, oh, here's I can without lying basically say, oh, let me show you what I did on Fool Us, but but a little different. And then just because again, it's because ultimately the trick was just about knowing, naming two selected cards, which on paper is like the most uninteresting trick. There's all the tricks of like, it's not matter how this card is selected or put back. It's about how you find it and how interesting the location is. And that trick is a 100% 90-degree opposite of that. It's a really fair, clean process. And the more you know
Definitely
about
magician
magic,
cool, for sure.
yes, yes. And like I was pretty sure they'd recognize it, and which is why I had the out, of course. But again, I just did not even. I tried to not even let that enter my mind. I tried to just like have as much like because Brian keeps saying, just have fun, just go out and have fun. So and
Yeah.
Brian was actually at the taping too, which was cool for him to be at the taping and see it, and for me to like walk off stage and hug someone that I knew. That was great. Uh, I'll always be thankful to him about that. So.
Now, unfortunately, because of the time, I was like trying to, earlier. I thought we were going to be on here an hour earlier, so I do got to get going to pick my
Yeah, you're
daughter up
going.
from
Yeah, yeah,
school. But
yeah.
I,
No
I, I want
worries.
I want to ask you one more thing, and then I want you to give your last thoughts here. But I wanted to
Sure.
ask you if you had to give some advice. What is some of the best advice that you've been given that you like to pass on to other magicians?
Uh, sorry, I don't mean to just totally
It happens.
blank. I also looked at time and realized we've been talking for like 90 minutes. So it's like, oh my God, yeah, we've been going a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah, all this is
So yeah.
impromptu, so I get it. It happens
Oh
to me
yeah,
all the
yeah.
time.
So okay. So I'm gonna steal Max Maven's advice in a moment, but I'm gonna give my advice first because I think Max's is better, and it's the thing I should end on. My advice is if there's anything you love as much as magic, not even more, just as much as magic, to do that can be done as a career of some kind, do that. Like, do not. I like when people say, "Oh, what's your advice for becoming a professional, full-time professional?" I almost always want to say, "Don't." You have to have something wrong with you. There's definitely something wrong with me, for sure. I did not. I feel weird giving business advice, which is why I'm okay with talking about promotion and marketing because that is an art in and of itself too. I'm okay with talking about all that and wanting to make, but like when it comes to taxes, when it comes to making rent, when it comes to you know all of it, I am the last person you should be talking to about any of this stuff. In fact, I think, and ironically, the most successful magicians also aren't, because they have other people usually who handle that stuff.
Right.
And yeah, it's such, because you sacrifice your passion for now being able to make rent and eat. And there's a great book called Make Art, Make Money, which I highly recommend everyone read. Brian Brian was the one who recommended it to me. I recommend it to everyone else. It's wonderful. It's basically about how to make money from your art, but also how to use that money to then make more art, to make better art and all that. So it's really fascinating. That's the only like real like career advice I have. And I have no problem. I used to give that advice again to the youth program, and someone was like, "Hey, why are you trying to discourage them?" I'm like, "Because they're really driven for this. Nothing will discourage them. There's nothing you can say to make me stop doing this. You know, you cut me, I bleed magic. I wake up, I think about, you know, not only what can I create, but when can I perform next? When can I, you know, get paid to do the next gig next? When can I, you know, all this stuff. I'm always thinking about it. And you've got to have that same drive. And I see a lot of people who just don't have that same drive, who like just, it's going to be even hard, and it's going to be even harder and more frustrating for them. And I don't want to see someone get frustrated. I think some of the best magicians and creators we have aren't full-time performers. John Bannon is one of my favorite creators. He's a lawyer. Also from Chicago. I've ran into him a few times. Really cool guy, really solid guy. But yeah, he doesn't make his living performing card tricks. It's purely from a work of passion and love. And I'm so glad that he's a lawyer and didn't have to do birthday parties in the 80s. Because if he was too busy performing the magic coloring book to survive, he might not have created the Bannon Triumph or the Origami Principle. Like we need creators. We need hobbyists. We need amateurs. Amateur means for the love of it. Professional doesn't mean you're good. It just means you get paid. And I know a lot of crap professionals. People who are like, how do they make a living? And in some ways you're not going to be in control over how much you make most of the time, but you are in control over how much of yourself you put into your art. So that's my very long answer. Max Maven's is much shorter. Read everything.
Oh, I like that too.
No, it's not all magic books. Not all. Paul Draper asked him, he's like, what do you mean by read everything? Read everything old, read everything new, read everything magic, mentalism. And Max just said, if I felt the need to use more words, I would have used them. So read everything.
That is a good one to end on. That is a good note to end on right there. Yeah. Joe,
perfect. Thank you again.
So much for coming on and having a conversation with me. You're a really cool guy, man. I really would love to have you come back on another time.
Please, yeah, absolutely. Please do. Yeah, we'll definitely do it again. And yeah, if anyone's in the Midwest area, or go to psychicsversascience.com, see if I'll be coming through your area. If I'm not, one final plug on that. This is what they call a tester tour. The tester company is doing this. Only doing a 15 city tour is a small tour for them, as a tester for them, I know. But if this goes well, the more likely we'll do more in 2027. So if you see somewhere on there that you're not in, but you know literally one person in that area, everyone watching, send them that link, because again, the only way we'll be able to bring it to anywhere else after June of this year is if as many people come see it as possible. So let's try to make that happen, because I'd love to hang out and meet everyone. So
Joe, you're one of my favorite magicians. I highly recommend him. Go see Joe.
Thank you,
Joe Diamond. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, my friend. Appreciate it. You take care.
You too.